Hey everybody, Josh Peck here. I just wanted to do a quick video update because some people had some questions on how the rapture works within the framework of the Dead Sea Scroll calendar, which seems to say that the end of our age occurs in 2075. I also want to give some quick updates at the end, but first, the question is, if the millennial reign, according to the calendar, if we're understanding it correctly, doesn't begin until 2075, then do we have to wait until 2068 for the rapture and the 7-year tribulation to begin? For those who are brand new to this subject, if you've never heard of this before, I'll just give a really brief synopsis of what we're talking about. During the time of Jesus, there were three main schools of thought on how to interpret the Old Testament. The Pharisees had what they called oral Torah, which were oral traditions passed down through time to interpret the Torah, and they believed prophecy had ceased in their time. The Sadducees got to a point where they didn't believe in much of anything, including angels or the afterlife. But then there were the Essenes, who followed the teachings of the Zadok priests, and they were the writers and keepers of the Dead Sea Scrolls in Qumran, and they fully believed that prophecy was still going on. The Essenes believed that they held on to the original teachings of Judaism in the way that it was always meant to be followed from the Old Testament. And one of those teachings was their solar calendar, which they said was the same one God gave to Adam. The Pharisees and Sadducees, by contrast, had adopted a pagan lunar calendar a couple of hundred years before the time of Christ. Now, the Dead Sea Scroll calendar fits perfectly in with the Bible. You can use this calendar all the way from Genesis to Revelation, and it all works. And by the way, if you want more information on this, I wrote an entire book on it. This is just going to go over some of the main points, but I wrote a whole in-depth book on it called Lost Prophecies of Qumran. So you can just Google that and find that. But Lost Prophecies of Qumran, and I am Josh Peck. But even more than a yearly calendar, they also had an understanding of the totality of creation from the first day of creation until the last day before the new heavens and new earth, as lasting for exactly 7,000 years, modeled after the calendar week. They split up this time in many ways, but most notably there are 4 ages. The first 3 lasting 2,000 years each, and the last age is a 1,000-year Sabbath rest. So we would understand that as the millennial reign. So the first age, which is called the age of creation, or sometimes the age of chaos, lasted between the first day of creation and the call of Abraham. The second age, called the Torah age, lasted between the call of Abraham and 75 AD, which was a few years after the temple was destroyed. And then the third age, called the age of grace, or what we would call the church age, which we live in now, began in 75 AD, and according to the calendar is set to end in 2075 AD. Then the final age would be between 2075 and 3075 AD. So that means that the final Jubilee, meaning 50 years, of our age is set to begin in 2025. So again, the question comes up, if we have this 50-year span until the start of the millennial reign, and we know that we have a rapture, 7-year tribulation, and return of Christ before the millennial reign can begin, then do we have to wait until 2068 for the rapture? That would be a pretty depressing thought, but thankfully that's not the only way that this could play out. So first off, it's important to note that the rapture is not the event that begins the tribulation. So Daniel 9:27 states, "Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate." So the beginning of the tribulation actually begins with the confirmation of a covenant with many, which actually refers to Israel. And that 1 week is actually a Shemitah, which is a period of 7 years. So by this point, the rapture would have already happened. Now, we don't know how long of a period of time there is between the rapture and the start of the tribulation. Technically, years could have passed. Now, I will say there is a really good objection to that theory that I'll address in a moment. But just to explain this theory, technically, there could be years or even decades between the rapture and the start of the tribulation. So just for sake of argument and not setting dates, let's say you have the rapture in 2025. There's nothing spelled out specifically in the Bible that would prohibit the start of the tribulation still occurring in 2068. Also, imagine how much deception the world would be thrown in if it were to happen that way. The rapture comes, 7 years go by, and no prophecies have been filled, no Antichrist, no cosmic signs, no return of Jesus. Well, in a scenario like that, those people who accepted Christ right after the rapture would start to appear pretty silly to non-believers. Now imagine a couple of decades go by, and still no prophecies fulfilled. Now at this time, you have a whole generation of people born in a post-rapture world who, not having lived through it, wouldn't have the same perspective or respect for that event that those who lived in the world during the time that it happened would. Um, could this, many of us remember living through 9/11, for example, but there's a whole generation of young people now who don't have the same perspective of it because they were born after, in a post 9/11 world. It's something like that. It would be similar. So could this be why all throughout Revelation people have such a hard time converting and believing with what they're seeing with their own eyes? They're seeing all these prophecies, but they're so dead set on not believing it. Could this be why? There is a lot more to this theory, and again, I go into great detail in my book, Lost Prophecies of Qumran, about it, but that's just the basic gist of the theory. Now, there is a good objection to this, that I want to address, and I heard this first from my good friend Mondo Gonzalez, that basically says we are given two examples of what to expect with the rapture, Noah and Lot. And in both of those cases, God rescued them right before the destruction came. God did not put Noah on the ark decades before the flood came, and God did not rescue Lot decades before the fire and brimstone came. So following that pattern, it's most likely the rapture will occur just before the tribulation starts. And I think that is a really good point, and one that we should definitely keep in mind. Now, one could say that God warned Noah 120 years before the flood that it was going to happen and began giving him instructions for his escape at that time, but Noah was still on earth, not in the ark, and we don't have anything like that with Lot. So the fact that God warned Noah early doesn't correlate, in my opinion. So are we back to having to wait until 2068 for the rapture? Not necessarily. There is still another option. Now, we know in the final Jubilee of the Age of Torah, which began in 25 AD, and again, a Jubilee is a period of 50 years, Jesus fulfilled the prophecies of his first coming very early in that last Jubilee. He was crucified in 32 AD, only 7 years or one Shemitah into the final Jubilee of the Torah age. Now, we as Christians would say that our age of grace, our church age, started with the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, which is true. But think of it as a piece of the next age that was brought in as a precursor to when the next age would officially start. So let me tell you what I mean. Think of it this way. I could say that I'm going to throw a birthday party next Friday at 3 p.m. Well, in order to prepare for that, I might schedule the attractions on Tuesday, order the cake on Wednesday, buy the gifts on Thursday, pick up the cake on Friday at 1 p.m., so that by Friday at 3 p.m., everything is ready and in place. It could even be that I had everything ready and in place an hour before the party was set to start. But would we say that the party really started at 2 p.m. then? Not technically. Even if people started showing up early, we'd still say the official start of the party is at 3 p.m. So ages, in the Essene understanding and the Dead Sea Scroll understanding, work in a similar way. There was a lot that needed to happen before the official age of grace could begin, including the destruction of the temple and the abolishment of the Pharisaical sacrificial system. Now, similarly, we have a lot that needs to happen before the millennial reign can officially begin, and it's more than just the rapture and tribulation. So it could stand to reason that we could have an early rapture, tribulation, and return of Jesus in our final Jubilee. That all could happen early. So again, let's just say for sake of argument, and again, not trying to set dates here, but just using this as an example, let's say that the rapture occurs in 2025. Now, shortly after the covenant is confirmed and the tribulation begins. Let's say that Jesus then returns in 2032, which actually that's really interesting because that would be exactly 2,000 years after he was crucified. resurrected, crucified, resurrected, and ascended into heaven. So 2032, 7 years after 2025. Now, in this example, much how Jesus fulfilled the prophecies of his first coming early in the final Jubilee, but there was still a temple and an old system to deal with, Jesus could do the same thing in our age. He could fulfill the prophecies about his second coming early in our final Jubilee. Of course, it begs the question, what will everybody be doing between the years of 2032 and 2075 while we wait for the millennial reign to officially begin? Well, much like the end of the Torah age, we still have a temple and an old system to deal with. We know that things are going to work differently in the millennial reign than they do now. The last few chapters of the book of Ezekiel give us a lot of detail on how things will work in the millennium. And this is common throughout all ages. All ages, things work a little differently. They all maintain the same principles. Like people in the Torah age still had to have faith in the Messiah to be saved. I mean, it even says that about Abraham, and it was credited as righteousness. So those sacrifices did not provide salvation, and we learned that from Hebrews. And that's a whole other study that I can get into in a different video. But just for here, just to explain, every age is built on the same core things. There's one God, the Messiah is Jesus, all of that. But each age has a little bit different ways of doing things. So again, the last few chapters of the book of Ezekiel, 40 through 48, gives us a lot of detail on how things will work in the millennium. Ezekiel is shown this amazing temple and this beautifully immense city. He's also given specific measurements of everything, so we know this is literal and is most definitely not figurative language. Now, by the time Ezekiel sees this, everything is already built and functioning in the millennial reign. But we must ask, how long did it take to build the new temple and the city? Many people assume that when Jesus returns, he'll just snap his fingers and everything will be different, but there really isn't any reason to think that's the case. For one thing, he didn't do that in his first arrival, in his first coming. He hung around for a bit and he instructed people on how to do things themselves. Of course, he did a lot himself too, but consider Isaiah 2:4, which speaks about how this time is set up. And he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Now, notice the progression of events in this verse. First, the nations are judged. We read about that in other places as well, but after Jesus comes back and defeats the Antichrist, he judges the nations. Now, we don't know exactly how long that judgment will take. I mean, how long does it take to judge all these nations? Who knows? After that, it's the people themselves that beat their swords into plowshares. Jesus does not just snap his fingers and transform the swords into plowshares. People do that physical work themselves. So it stands to reason that it will be people under the direction of Jesus who build the new temple and the city. We basically have a blueprint for it with all the measurements in Ezekiel already. So how long might that actually take? Well, interestingly enough, the rebuilding of the second temple by Herod the Great started in 20 BC and actually lasted for 46 years. And that was just the second temple. So a project like that can easily take decades. Adding to that, how long does it take to instruct the whole world on how things are going to play out now? The age of grace will be ending, so much like when the age of Torah was ending, instructions will have to go out to the world to teach everybody what Jesus expects from now on and how everything will be conducted. How long could that take? So given all this, I think it's entirely possible that we could have an early rapture, tribulation, and return of Jesus, but still have a few decades of cleanup, so to speak, before the millennial reign starts, just like the birthday party example. So again, we'll have these decades of kind of cleanup and getting used to the new, like learning about the new way of doing things, getting all this stuff built, before, just like in the birthday party example, everything is in place and ready to officially begin the millennial reign of Christ and the final 1,000-year Sabbath of all creation before the new heavens and new earth. I really hope that helps. Now, of course, all of this is speculative, and we just don't know for sure how everything will pan out. But I wanted to explain how we can have 50 years left, but that we don't necessarily need to wait all that time for anything to happen. The rapture could happen at any time, so make sure you're ready. We're already seeing things getting insane in the world, and I think we kind of all feel like there's not much time left. So look up, for our redemption draws near. Now, before I close out this video, I wanted to give a couple quick updates. First, some of you may have already heard on Facebook, but I have accepted a position at Prophecy Watchers, working alongside my very good friends and heroes, Bob Ulrich, Mondo Gonzalez, Gary Stearman, and of course the entire team. And if all goes to plan, my family and I will be moving to Oklahoma in a month, about a month or so. And my goodness, is there a lot to do in that short amount of time. So prayers would be appreciated. Now, most of you know that I've been working for Zach Drew at IGBY Ministries the past few months. And just to make sure that it's clear to everyone, me and Zach did not have any kind of falling out or anything like that. Everything's fine. We're still very good friends and will remain so. This is just purely a God thing. So I just wanted to make sure that no rumors got started or anything. Zach has been very supportive and helpful throughout this whole process, so there's nothing bad happening behind the scenes. That's not why I'm leaving. This decision wasn't made lightly, but after a lot of prayer and consideration, it became obvious to my wife Christina and I that this is a move of God, so we're going to be obedient. As a quick side note, if anyone is aware of any 4 or more bedroom houses for rent around the Oklahoma City area, or if anyone is looking for a 4-bedroom house in a really nice part of Decatur, Illinois, feel free to get a hold of me at joshpeckdisclosure@gmail.com and let me know. We have 5 kids and 3 cats, so we are actively looking. We're looking for a place there in Oklahoma, and we're looking for somebody to buy our house here in Decatur. I also want to announce that if all goes to plan, the new Daily Renegade website will be activated this Friday. So I'm recording this on February 7th, Wednesday. So by Friday the 9th. Now, the site will have to be down for a little while to provide time to transfer all members to the new site and to get the new domain name straight. Also, if you are a member, when your next billing period comes up, you will have to re-input your payment information. So don't let that freak you out. It's just because it's a new system. Now, it still will be dailyrenegade.com, of course, but it'll look a lot different and it'll function much, much better. And it'll have all sorts of new perks and stuff for members, including a social media platform built right into Daily Renegade, so we can all communicate with each other and post and comment, and it works a lot like Facebook. So to prepare for that and to try and raise some funds for everything that's going on, for a very limited time, I can really only do this mainly today and maybe a little bit of tomorrow, Thursday. So for a very limited time, and again, I'm recording this February 7th, 2024. So if you're watching this like a year later, this isn't relevant. But for today, hopefully a part of tomorrow, I am having a 20% off sale on yearly memberships of Daily Renegade. So if you haven't had a chance to already, and if you like videos like these and everything that I do with the Sharpening Report, which is basically these kind of videos, and then I'll have on guests from time to time as well for really exciting interviews, all in this kind of prophecy realm, head on over to dailyrenegade.com and sign up for a yearly membership today. Again, this is only going to last for today and maybe part of tomorrow. So if you want full videos not available anywhere else and early access, even up to 2 weeks in advance, sign up today. I typically do not put my full episodes, my full videos on YouTube because of censorship issues, which led to the creation of Daily Renegade in the first place. That's why the only place to get full videos is Daily Renegade. Right now, we have available the next 3 full episodes of the Sharpening Report, and of course, all past ones, which on YouTube takes us through February 21st, so most of this month. But instead of waiting for half an episode each week, you can get these 3 in full right now. So the first is Bigfoot, Animal, Alien, or Angel, with Luke Rogers and Nate Henry of the popular Blurry Creatures podcast. It was an excellent conversation. We get into all sorts of stuff. And really the second half is where it really picks up. So if you want to see that, don't wait for the YouTube premiere because you're only going to get the first half. Go to Daily Renegade and get a year membership. The second is Ancient Watcher Magic Technology of Egypt and India, which explains some of the stranger aspects of biblical and extra-biblical history, the technology that the Watchers brought to man. You know, what do extra biblical texts say about this, like the sin of Canaan and the recreation of hybrids and giants, all this stuff. So it's a really fascinating study. But again, if you wait for the YouTube premiere, you're only going to get the first half. And then the third one is much like what we talked about today. The third one is Prophecies of the Essenes, Jesus 2025 and the End of Days, which is really a deeper dive into many of the things that I talked about in this video. It is all Essene prophecy stuff, and how that connects and correlates with the Bible. So if that interests you, go to dailyrenegade.com and take advantage of this very, very limited time offer, keeping in mind that your membership fee really goes a long way in keeping Daily Renegade running and many other things that we have planned for the near future. Now, lastly, many of you have asked about my son Nathan, and I wanted to give a quick update. After years of fighting cancer, he's still in remission from cancer. He is still cancer-free, but the medications and chemo that destroyed the cancer also destroyed a lot of other things in his body. So we are taking an all-natural approach toward rebuilding what was lost from the chemo. This is very expensive because none of it is covered by insurance, but it is the best thing for him. It is the healthiest thing for him. You know, but the various supplements and treatments that he needs are astronomically pricey. So if you would like to help with the increasing medical costs for Nathan and his battle with post-cancer treatment, please donate at paypal.me/JoshPeckDisclosure, which is also linked in the description below if you're viewing this on YouTube. paypal.me/JoshPeckDisclosure. All right, well, that is going to be all for me today. Thank you all so much for your time. I really do hope that helps. Love you all. Take care, and God bless.